Hello everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today we are continuing a discussion that I have done in a couple of previous videos, which would be talking about negotiation. In particular, one of the last videos that I did was talking about how to focus negotiation around feelings and goals and reasons as opposed to just merely the toys you are going to be using in that scene. And what I want to talk about today is a little bit different from either one of those. This in particular is focus as a style for tops to use when they are doing pickup play. So if you are a top and you like doing scenes where you get straight into the action, you don't like getting into the nitty-gritty, you like being able to improvise a little bit, you don't like having to structure things like super detailed for the entire scene, this is something that's probably going to work well for you. If you are somebody who is a bottom and you like being surprised, you like being able to give up more control to the tops you're playing with, if you are just open to new experiences, if you kind of like going with the flow, this style might also work well for you too. What I want to emphasize though before we get into it, and I know disclaimers, I always have to give disclaimers, but we're an educational YouTube channel, that's what we do. There are some things that I think are vital to any style of negotiation, regardless of what that might be. So, safe words, aftercare, those things are commonly brought up in every single style of negotiation, though not necessarily always. And I'm not necessarily going to talk about that in this video. And if you are lost and you don't know anything about negotiation, I highly recommend you check out some of the other videos that I have done previously that will be down in the description box below. This time, the way that we are structuring this negotiation is all around the toy bag. So if you are a top that doesn't necessarily have a really robust toy bag yet, be aware there is sometimes nights at dungeons where there are toys available for open play. There are also lots of DIY options, and even though I'm probably going to be focusing more on the physical in the toy bag toys, there are also many things you can do with the very body parts that you have. So that might include things like slapping, punching, kicking, pinching, biting, licking, hair pulling. There are lots of things you can do without having to buy any toys at all. So even though this is going to focus primarily around picking out objects, you can also be sure to include non-physical objects, and the way that you decide to incorporate that kind of just depends on what your own natural conversational style is. As a bottom, basically what this means is when you are getting into a scene with this person, that might look like you are going through their toy bag and you're familiarizing yourself with their toys. You talk to them about like, hey, is humiliation on the table? Is verbal degradation on the table? Is spitting on the table? Whatever it is that may not be included in the toy bag, you can also kind of verbally confirm, is this also something that might be included because it's not in this toy bag? And then what you do is you categorize what's in that toy bag into one of three categories. So one, you're going to pick 3 to 5 items that you like. You're going to pick 3 to 5 items that you don't like. And then you're going to pick 1 to 3 items that you are curious about. Now, this leaves a lot of room for stylistic interpretation. It is something that can be used in an inclusive negotiation style. It is something that can be used in an exclusive negotiation style. And again, if you're not familiar with this terminology, I do have other videos where I have explained it down below. So for example, if you were doing this and you have the toys picked out that you like, that you don't like, that you're curious about, that might mean that everything is off limits except for the toys you picked out saying that you liked. Or you might decide that none of these things are off limits and you are merely giving the top your feedback about what you do and don't like and the things that you're curious about. And that really gets to the heart of what this negotiation style is. It's not so much about figuring out, I like this, these are my hard limits, these are my soft limits, because those are different things. It's about giving the top information about what you do and don't enjoy playing with. It is about giving the top feedback, ideas for the scene in terms of like, okay, so they're kind of leaning a little bit more towards the thuddy side of things. Okay, they're leaning a little bit more towards the thuddy side of things. They like a lot of texture. They like smaller toys. They like things that can be used kind of in close range, or they really, really like whips, or they really, really like floggers. It is a tool to give the top feedback about what the scene might look like. And this leaves a lot of room for interpretation. It is up to you and your partner to decide what you are going to make of these different categories you have created. It might mean that one toy is used the entire scene. It might mean that all of them are used at some point in the scene. It really, really depends. And again, it's up to you and your creativity and your boundaries and your preferences to kind of figure out exactly what direction you steer things from here. So something else to note here is the importance of feeling and intention. The creator of the class where I learned this methodology, BusDriver, did emphasize that it was very important to not only know these things, but to also know the feeling, the intention, the motivation behind whatever type of play that you're doing is. Because that means that the top doesn't have to just wing it. They have some idea of why the person wants to do this scene, what their motivations are, how they might be able to help that person achieve that. And then on the bottom side as well, it helps you have more of a voice in terms of the sorts of energy you're going to have in the scene. Make sure that things that are important to you are brought up before the scene actually starts. And I think all of that really contributes to everybody having a better time in the scene as well. So this would actually be a good point if you want to include some of the other methodologies that I have mentioned in previous videos, so that way you can learn how to discuss feelings, motivations, and intent behind scenes, because that can be a really difficult process for some people, especially if you haven't had experience talking about that kind of thing before. The way I would kind of think about all of this is almost like an episode of Chopped. And I've watched a lot of Chopped, so hopefully this will make sense to somebody besides me. But basically, having a scene and knowing the feelings and motivations behind that are like the different categories that you might prepare a meal for. So that could be dessert, that could be dinner, that could be lunch, that could be breakfast. And that might correspond, to different motivations, different feelings you want to have in the scene. Maybe it's a cathartic scene, maybe it's a silly scene, maybe it's a subspace focus scene. It all kind of depends, and that's sort of the general category that the top or chef has to work around. Now, the toys that you have selected or not selected are like the ingredients in the ingredient basket that all the competitors get. So, for example, in Chopped, you might have a situation where a chef has to make a dinner using squid ink, marshmallow fluff, and truffle oil. And likewise, a top might have to create a cathartic scene using nipple clamps, canes, and a blindfold. And through that, you have a million different ways you can combine different things together, different ways you can present things, different intentions that you as the top can put into your play, the energy you put out there. So, are you going to flambe it? Are you going to put it in a mixer? Are you going to present things in a very loving, caring way? Are you going to present things in a very aggressive way, in a detached way, in a cold way? There are lots of different methods of preparation, combinations, presentations that you can do for play. And I think this hopefully kind of illustrates what this sort of scene is geared towards. It's not about having a super detailed, okay, we're going to do 1A and then 2A and then 1B and then 1B.2 and then, having everything super, super detailed and sequenced all the way through the entire course of the scene. It's about giving the top a little bit of room for artistic expression. It's about their interpretation of how they would take these objects and then create the kind of scene that you then want to have. And for somebody who is a bottom, for somebody who maybe is a little bit of, a gastro freak, as somebody who's really, really into food, a foodie. Somebody who's a foodie, that's the word that I want to look for. So it's like, if you're a foodie, you like going into situations where the chef kind of gets to create whatever they want with like the best ingredients that they have. And likewise, for a bottom who maybe enjoys this kind of situation where they like the surprise, they like being able to have the top have control, this can be a really rewarding experience because it means the top gets to kind of have a little bit of freedom in that, and you get to kind of maybe understand a little bit of their personal style in a way that you might not necessarily get to in a much more controlled scene. And for bottoms as well, who really like being able to give up control and not have a lot of say in their scenes, this can be a great way of doing that. Now, just what I want to emphasize here at the end, because I never know like who's gonna watch these videos or like how many other topics of mine that they've seen. Like, again, this is not meant to be a complete negotiation by itself. This is not necessarily meant for people who are new to the BDSM scene. If you're new to kink, if you're not really sure what you enjoy, if you're not really confident in using your safe words or your negotiation skills yet, I would not really go here first. I would think of this as a way when you are comfortable with other partners, when you're comfortable with those kind of basic foundational skills, then you start kind of going into this little bit more of a free form direction. And it's also really important as well to make sure you do include things like aftercare, safe words in your discussions. Again, I just really want to emphasize that because I didn't talk about it in today's video. Make sure you're discussing that as well, because when you are leaving things up a little bit more to interpretation here, you're being a little bit looser with your negotiations, that creates more of a situation where somebody might have to say yellow or red. And it's important to acknowledge that. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but it is something that can happen, and it's important to make sure that everybody understands that that is a possibility in the scene and that you should be prepared to handle that in whatever way that you negotiate is the appropriate way to do so. And one very, very last final note here that I want to make sure to say is that you should always inform yourself as much as you can of the risks of the types of play you're engaging in. It is easy, if you are doing this style of negotiation, to end up in a situation where you are maybe engaging in things that you've never played with before. You are maybe engaging with types of play that you're not really familiar with. And so as a top, that means it's your responsibility to make sure you are telling your bottoms what to expect from whatever implement it is. I don't know if I emphasized this earlier, but like when you're going through the toy bag, like ask questions, give feedback, you know, let there be a conversation about what's going on here. So when somebody pulls something out, you can say, oh, okay, well, there is a risk that might draw blood. You know, that kind of thing. Making sure that you as a top are taking the responsibility to give information where you can. And then as a bottom as well, because not all tops operate that way, it is also important to inform yourself. It is also important to make sure that you are doing your own research, you are going to classes, you are asking questions where you think you need to, and that will set you up for success. If you guys have any other comments or questions, anything that maybe you're still wondering about after this video, you can leave that down in the comment section below. I know this is maybe a little bit more of a loose kind of like instructional information type of video, because again, this is a little bit more geared towards advanced play, more so than like super safe, like narrow risk profile, like beginner type of play. And that's okay, everybody has their own styles. If you enjoyed this video, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. I make videos twice a week about all sorts of kink and BDSM related topics. And finally, if you did really enjoy this video, if you want to help me do what I do here on YouTube, because I do not make ad revenue, I do not make any money off of YouTube by itself whatsoever. Everything that makes this possible goes through Patreon. So I have extra videos over there, I have extra photo shoots, I have a bunch of exclusive stuff, I have a Discord chat, you know, Fat Life access, all sorts of fun things. So if you haven't already checked that out, please do. Link to it will be down below. And if you do already support me over there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.